Sunday. Welcome to another episode of True Story Live. Tonight's topic is the living years in the connection. And say it loud, say it clear. And so that's going to be the topic for tonight. So if you're tuning into the show and you want to skip all the frivolities and the friendlies at the front, then you can go to about the 10-minute mark and resume the playback. And you can start when we start discussing the topic. Before we get started, we have a member in our chat that she comes and fellowships in the chat most of the shows, and she's in a lot of the other chats. And just to be very discreet. Sorry, I'm a little tongue-tied here at the moment, but she came in the chat, and if you guys kind of scroll up as you come in, you can see that she's dealing with some pretty serious things right now. So I think that she's probably going to explain that a little bit, and I don't want to draw unneeded attention. But if you are in the chat, then you hopefully just send her some love and let her know that we're all praying for her and that we care about her very much. And it is a serious thing, and we take it as such. So just please reach out to her in the chat while we can, and we're getting contact information so we can deal with it, hopefully, and just pass along whatever love and support that we can, because that's what we are about here at True Story Live. It's about being honest and open and authentic with each other, whatever may come up, and we don't pull any punches when it comes to that. We care more about people than about ratings or listeners or subscribers or any other thing. We want to be there for people in whatever they're going through if we can. So I will leave that where it is for now, and we'll just kind of keep an eye on it. And we love you too, just so you know.
We love you, Anna.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, praying for you.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thanks. All right, so I want to first say hello to everyone on the panel. First of all the way to my left, Glenn from Australia. He's an integral part of the show, and he has been listening. He's probably heard all the shows, even when I was on Blog Talk, but certainly came on before YouTube. And then, I don't know, we've got this might be show number 24, I think, if I'm correct on that, 24 or 25. And Glenn, I think other than when you were in Japan, you've been on just about every show. So we're glad to have you. How are you doing this evening? Or for you, it's during the daytime, right?
I'm well, thanks. I'm a little bit sobered by what I've read, but you can take the love from Australia, Anna, and seriously, we're thinking so much for you, and that's family's everything, and you're obviously part of the family. So
yeah,
all the best to you.
Yeah, thank you, Glenn. Thank you for adding that. Then, of course, Jen hopped off. We'll come back to her. Steve? Jen might be talking to her. They exchanged phone numbers, I think, back and forth, so that would be okay. Steve, how are you doing tonight? Are you on the road? Well, obviously you are. If you were home, you wouldn't even be on the show, would you?
Generally not. But I'm doing okay. And I did see that Jen, yes, she has stepped off to talk to Anna, so that's wonderful.
Yep, I see it too. Thank you. Yep, I didn't look at my phone. Thanks, Steve.
No problem. And again, praying for you, Anna. This is very near and dear to my heart, as I've been dealing with a loved one who has been struggling there. So know that I'm praying for you with the same fervor that I'm praying for my loved one. So, but otherwise, I mean, I'm doing well, and in that area.
Yeah, talk about that, Steve. Just so you know, I would love for you to talk about that a little bit, also, so that the listeners get an idea of kind of what you're going through, so they can pray for you in that area as well.
I'll say this, that if anybody watched Renee's video recently where she asked for prayer for a little brother in our community, so to speak,
Yep.
on would have been Thursday, that she posted that video. That was for my stepson.
Okay. Yeah.
So, um, so with that in mind, I've been, there's been struggle with depression and anxiety and stuff like that, and some other things for a while, and I've been praying for that and for some other things and for a while. And if anybody's been a part of my regular shows, I've been telling you, keep praying, keep praying, keep praying, keep praying, keep
Yeah.
abiding, keep praying. Pray, 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 and
Yeah.
don't stop even if you don't get the answer that you're praying for. And this past week, it's been like from the day that happened and before, just stuff being lined up with other things being prayed for at the same time, all of a sudden. And I know that God is a God of suddenlies, where you
Yeah.
seemingly been waiting and waiting and waiting, and then all of a sudden stuff starts happening.
Yep.
And
Oh my
I
gosh. Yes.
believe it's been a complicated, complex answer in the midst of a severe problem.
Mm-hmm.
Answers in the midst of a severe issue, and that God stepped in and got in his way, stopped him from himself.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most amazing things that has happened with that. And because because for me, where I am and what I do, I can't be there
Right.
to literally put my hands on him to restrain him when he feels like, you know, doing something to hurt himself.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a hard thing too, Steve.
So all I have is God. All
Right.
I have is prayer.
Right.
That's it. That's all I got.
Mm-hmm.
All I got is my relationship with God. And I believe God is, you know, the worldly saying God is bad enough to handle it.
Yeah.
Not bad, but like he's mighty, he's able, he's strong, he's awesome, he's powerful, he's bad to the bone, not in the worldly bad, but you know what I mean? So it's awesome to know that I have that line of communication, and that not only do I have that, but he cares, and he does step in when we ask, and especially when we keep asking like he's told us to.
Yeah.
And so I will be praying for you, Anna, and I pray for God's grace all over you, to cover you and to heal whatever wounds are in you that are causing you to feel this way.
Yeah.
And for you to find a real friend, a real, true, believing friend that will walk life with you
Yeah.
through these ups and downs. That's so important.
Oh, it's so important.
Whether you're a believer or not, to have one person that can do life with you and share your burdens, so important, because then you're not alone.
Well, we can all agree on that, regardless of believer or non-believer.
Mm-hmm.
To have any person
Exactly.
that you can honestly trust and open up to is extremely helpful.
Yep. Just one. That's all you. I mean, you don't need 50.
No.
One is enough.
No.
2 to 3 is great, but one is enough.
In fact, on social media, what do you have, like 500 friends? And how many of those can you really actually talk to?
Right.
I mean, a handful, maybe.
Right.
Yeah. Celine
and
says.
Not just talk to, but be real with.
Yeah. Celine says it's not the quantity, it's the quality, and that's obviously a popular phrase, but it's very true in this case when it comes to friendships for real.
And I want to add one thing.
Mm-hmm.
attacking it from the spiritual side is the number one most important thing anybody can do, especially for someone hurting like that, or even the person themselves, like in Anna's case, or her friends to pray for her. That's the number one thing. But
Well, yeah.
don't not look at the natural and medical side. And I'm not going like, you know, to say don't be on medicine because that's pharmakia. No, no, no. Pharmakia is using it to open your mind to the supernatural.
Well, yeah, the pharmacy is also ritualistic too.
Right,
If you're
right,
taking medicine or insulin for diabetes, for instance, it's just
right. That's not pharmakia. Even medicines that are designed to help you with depression and anxiety are not pharmakia,
yeah. Thank you, Steve.
because
And that
it's
should
not, it's not about that, because
no
people's lives are being wrecked by people saying you got to get off that because it's a sin, it's
right,
pharmakia, blah blah blah. No,
right.
no, that's not. No,
It
pharmakia is taking it for the sole purpose of being, quote unquote, enlightened, to open up your third eye to, you know, enhance a spiritual, ungodly meditation,
mhm.
to, you're
Ritualistic.
trying to gain access to the supernatural
Yeah,
without Jesus.
through rituals.
That's
That's
pharmakia.
fine. Yeah,
That's trying to enter in by any other gate other than the Christ. So
yeah. It sure is. It sure.
yeah,
Um, it should be. Some of this stuff should be common sense. If you need
yeah,
something, um, medical, if you have something going on in your body, there are things that were created for the purpose to be used by us
right.
that have nothing to do with the ritual being performed. It's about providing something for your body. Like, I mean, do some people say taking vitamins is pharmakia? You know,
Yeah,
someone takes vitamins.
there are some people that go that far,
Yeah.
but like with my situation, we're attacking it from all three angles,
Hmm.
from natural, herbs and supplements to,
Yeah.
and also the behavioral health
Yep.
spectrum, and
Which means
supernatural.
some kind of
Yeah,
counseling
counseling
or
and
therapy or
medicine.
right,
Yeah, all
right,
of that,
hmm
all of that, and supernatural,
right.
and the spiritual praying. Because that's the number one thing. But don't not do the others.
Yeah. Sandy Sims says if it stops my heart pills, I will stop. I tried. So yeah, we hear you. If you're being prescribed something from your doctor that's going to help an actual physical thing that you're going through, um, that's there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that some of that should be common sense. That's exactly my point. Hey, Daryl, good to see you. Okay, so do you guys think we should just go ahead and get started? And we can kind of start to go through the questions and stuff. I know Jen's still probably talking to Anna, so well, there's Sherry. Welcome back, Jen.
Hey, guys.
How we doing?
Okay, good. Anna's doing good.
Okay.
Just touched base with her, and she says she loves us, and I told her we love her too, and we're praying for her. But she's safe in the ICU. She's doing okay. So.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for taking the time to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. Well, perfect timing then. We'll go ahead and get started.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so tonight's topic is the living years, and there's some things actually in this write-up that are pertinent to any situation where we're dealing with regret or dealing with things that may not be right in our psyche deep down. So tonight's adventure topic is connection. Mike and mechanics come to the party with the living years, a song of opportunities missed. However, with a different perspective, an inspirational song of hope to make remedy before the chance is lost. And we did include the link to the song in the description. You can click on that. We're not making any money from the use of putting the link or using it during the show. So it's for entertainment purposes only. If one reads the comments attached to the video, there's much "it's too late" and the sadness that goes with it. Regrets in hindsight are like a river without water. There's no rain coming, only pain. We say the only way to deal with regret is try your absolute best to have none. Leaving nothing unsaid, play your part as if there was no tomorrow. Play your part with no expectation. Just give everything you have and cherish the thought that you actually do care. Connect and be content. Can't quite connect? Leave no reason for discontent, excuse me. Even though we can't choose our parents, our brothers, sisters, the rest of the family, why might it be that so many families don't see eye to eye, live in separation, yet others cruise through the cooperative spirit and the common good being paramount? Jessica Verde says, finding someone you can really connect with is like winning the lottery. It happens basically never, but if it does, you really shouldn't blow it. Speak with those who make authentic connections with others, and they will tell you it's an adventure every second. Nobody's going to blow that. Joey Palermo says, I believe in the kind of love that doesn't demand me to prove my worth and sit in anxiety. I crave a natural connection where my soul is able to recognize a feeling of home in another. Something free-flowing, something simple, something that allows me to be me without question, end quote. Considering the quote, many believers may say, this sounds more like what I feel with God than people. We now ask, how does this work in real life? If you are one of the fortunate, is a true connection with self and another effortless or effortful? On the other hand, what if you give everything you have to give and the other person doesn't or can't respond? Non-response, any of this sound familiar in your family? You try your hardest to connect, but don't ever make progress. There's always distance, a brick wall. You can't quite put your finger on the reason why. Consider the relationship of members of a believing in God, saved family. Is it possible disconnect has something to do with not being or not all being on the same page beliefs-wise? Add to that, family or otherwise, is it possible to form a true connection between someone who allies their sense of achievement in being busy with works and working compared with someone who does not have the working mentality, but is primarily about living, people, and relationships? That's the issue. Someone preoccupied with works can only see the value of another in their works. Think how easily one can get kicked to the footpath or the curb using that premise. Any other reasons why sometimes our friends feel like family, yet family don't feel like friends? At the end of the day, sometimes things work out, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they have no chance. Don't let any of that prevent you from saying it loud and saying it clear. No regrets. Beautiful. Wow, beautiful write-up, in my opinion, and it seems pertinent to some things going on today. So, I'm glad that we addressed that at the beginning, and it seems like some things are perfect timing. Hello, Golgotha. Welcome. Glad you're here. Alrighty. All right. So we're going to get started with the questions. We have some really good questions tonight as well. And do we have anyone else? I had asked someone to come on the panel. They said that they were going to think about it, but it doesn't look like he's here yet this evening. Daryl, I don't know if you'd be interested if you want to come on the panel. think about it, and you can answer in chat if you'd like to. Like to come on and answer some of our questions. I don't know where Matthias is. I sent him the link, but I know that Sunday's his busy day. He usually doesn't. He might be having a problem with his internet. Okay, sorry. Taking a sip of my drink. All right. So question 1, why might it be that so many families don't see eye to eye, live in separation, yet others cruise through with the cooperative spirit being paramount? In other words, why does it seem like some families just can't seem to be on the same page, while others, whatever obstacles or circumstances come in life, everyone just kind of jumps to and gets their hands in there and takes care of the problem without any issues? It doesn't seem to be a big rigmarole for some people, some families, to jump in and take care of a situation as it comes up. Steve, do you want to take a swing at that first one? Why might it be that so many families don't see eye to eye? They live in separation, yet others cruise through with the cooperative spirit being paramount. Steve, you're muted, buddy. There you go.
I swear I pushed on mute.
Well, I saw it. It clicked off. Seriously, it clicked off for a second, then it clicked back on again. So I figured you didn't know that it. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, I did. Okay.
That's okay. It's kind of guys, listen, it's kind of a choppy start tonight. So if you're listening to the playback, just know that it's the way that it is sometimes with live radio. It's true about any live show, whether you're on stage or you're doing one of these broadcasts. It's not recorded ahead of time. It's not a video. It's live performance. So things happen, technical issues and emotional things come up, and
oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
all
Steve,
being authentic.
Yep, all about being open and authentic. Thank you, Jen. So, Steve, why might it be that so many families don't see eye to eye? They live in separation, yet others cruise through with the cooperative spirit being paramount. Why do some families seem to be on the same page while others seem everything's a big deal, and people end up trying to deal with circumstances and storms and tribulation by themselves?
I think really it comes down to what's important.
Ooh.
Is it being right or the family?
Yeah.
It's honestly that simple.
Yeah, Mark says live performance. Some juggling would be nice.
I can juggle.
Yeah, I can juggle too. I actually played a fire eater in a play on stage, one of my first plays for community theater.
I can juggle for about 1.5 seconds.
Okay.
maybe up to 5 seconds, but
Yeah.
I can juggle two in one hand. You throw one up, throw the other. I can do that.
Okay. That's good.
When you add the third one in there, that it starts getting a problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, no.
Do it.
Do it.
Just do it.
How is it in your family, Steve, with the present situation you have going on? I mean, it seems like you have more the cooperative spirit, right? With dealing with your stepson.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's times where that's harder to do than others.
Sure.
But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm trying to put God first, so that my family is first through that, because I'd rather have God be in control of my life and situation than me.
Right.
And so there's a lot more to it there, but and even on the broader context of things, the Bible says to as far as it depends on you, be at peace with all men.
Oh, yeah, I like that one.
So, with this in particular, if we're all doing that, especially in families, believe it or not, if you're actually trying to be peaceful and be at peace with people,
Yeah.
then there will be there might come strife periods, but the strife won't be the important thing. It'll be the peace is the important thing. And how do we get back to that?
Mm-hmm. How do
You
you
know,
stay in that? I would like to add, Steve, I'm not taking away from what you're saying. I would like to say, how come you can't just stay in that? Stay in the connected place.
well, I think that comes down to the fact that we're all human and capable of doing stupid things.
Boom.
And because of that, but what is the response of those that of you after doing, not you, but just to
Oh, it
you
could
in
be me.
general,
Sure.
I'm just saying it, the general you, um, the person that's done the stupid thing, what is their response and reaction after the fact, and what is the family's response and reaction to that, and moving back towards a place of peace where both sides are trying actively seeking out reconciliation to put it aside and make it work and be at peace instead of let's ignore the elephant in the room. And I don't know how many times, you talk with people that, have the ignore the elephant in the room mentality, and
Oh, yeah.
invariably a fight happens
Yep.
because there's so much tension in trying to play nice
Mm-hmm.
when you have hurt feelings,
Yeah.
that it ends up making more hurt feelings
Oh, yeah.
because the original hurt feelings were never dealt with.
Yes, yes. So that's the thorn that never gets dug up
Uh-huh.
deep down inside. That's the wound that never gets healed. I mean, there's
And
so many analogies to use there.
yep, and eventually becomes gangrene and you have to cut the arm off.
Yep, absolutely. You got right on it, Steve, in my opinion. I have a personal situation that has happened in my family, and a lot of times things don't come up because there's not situations that allow things to come to light. But I had a situation that a lot of it boiled down to maybe past wounds. I haven't really dug into it too much yet, but some of the presenting issues are unmet expectations, which is a big thing in families. You have one person expecting things to go one way, and the other person doesn't realize that expectation, and they're thinking things go another way, and they're not meeting at all. They're not connecting. They're not on the same page. Where other families that have been through things before, in my family, for instance, when we've had my dad broke his back several years ago, and everyone just seemed to know what to do. It was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen in our family. We never had anything like that, really, to that magnitude. But he almost died. My dad almost died, and everybody played their part. I mean, I stepped up and did what I could do. I had to give my dad bath, help him bathe and stuff. He had to wear a neck brace, and I had to take it off and put it back on. Nothing major, but I did what I could do, and my sister did what she could do with taking him to his doctor's appointments, and we all spent time in his hospital room, and we just all did what we could do. Where other situations that aren't as dire, it seems like nobody knows what in the world's going on or what their role is. And I would like to see it more the other way in this question, the cooperative spirit being paramount. Like whatever it is, whether it's your father running into a tree and turning his car over and breaking his back, or whether it's problems with other members of the family and something needs to get taken care of on a much smaller level. To me, I would like to have the same attitude across the board, regardless if it's a big thing or it's a little thing.
Can I add one thing?
Please do, Steve. It's a conversation, bro.
Well, I know. I just didn't want to hog too much time.
Nope, you're okay. We're a little
okay.
short-staffed tonight, so we can drag it out a little bit longer.
And with what you're saying there, and the kind of topic in the in what you read, regret. And with that in mind, regret is always past looking. It never looks to the future. And with the question in mind, families that are stuck in the past or in regret, or people stuck in the past and in regret, are not focused on the future. And what do I need to do to make it better? Because if we're all honest, we've all done something at some point in our life that is regretful.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And so the trick to having no regrets is not that you didn't make some mistakes in your past, but that you work through what you did.
Yes.
You forgive yourself for what you did. You try to make amends, and then you move forward, trying to do the best you can to make life better for you, for your family, for your friends. To not do those things again, and learning why you did it in the first place. All these kinds of things.
Yeah.
So that you're not past focused.
Right.
Because if you're stuck in the past, you'll never see the cliff coming.
Well, yeah, and one of the sentences that we use is sit in anxiety. That's one of the phrases Glenn used. Sit in anxiety. Yeah, and that's what you're talking about. We don't want to sit in the anxiety, especially over past things.
Right.
We don't want to sit in anxiety at all. We want to come out of that place and be able to move forward in a healthy way, in a more wholesome way. So what you added, Steve, was very good. Jen, would you like to weigh in on question one? I know that you've been focused on a few other things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
I don't know if I'm repeating something, but I don't think I am. I think some families just are made up of people who aren't open and honest with one another in the moment.
Yes.
When feelings are instead they're pushed down, and this is something that Glenn should start a class and charge money for.
Yeah. Therapy.
But
question therapy. That's what he would call it.
Oh yeah, question therapy. But also, one thing I've learned from him, just with Australians in general, they tend to be quite more open with how they feel in the moment. I feel like, and he and I have talked about this, where Americans tend to walk on eggshells with each other mostly, for the most part. So it was so refreshing to have conversations with him, and there were times where I would wonder if he felt a certain way and wasn't saying anything, and he kept having to remind me, no, I don't do that.
Right. I get it.
If I'm upset or if whatever, I'll tell you, and I'm like, wow, that's so refreshing.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of families that tend to not do that. They play into the eggshell walking and stuffing down feelings. And there's not an atmosphere that's created within the family of there being a safe place.
Yes.
Where it's taught, hey, your feelings are important, whether I agree with them or not.
Oh my gosh.
So when you're feeling them, at the moment you're feeling them, talk to me about it. And that I'm not going to freak out and flip out on you or get defensive and just rage out or anything. So yeah, when it comes to the first question, I think that's an issue that plays into a lot of families. There just isn't a safe space for people to be honest and authentic and open.
Thank you. So validation does not mean agreeing with what the other person is feeling.
Exactly.
Validation is saying, I see that you're feeling this.
Yeah.
And just being in a place of hearing it and it's not agreeing with it. It's not agreeing with however it took that person to get to a certain situation either. to me, the validation is so important, and it doesn't mean that you agree with everything. It just means that you're hearing the person.
Yeah, and I think that plays into seeing eye to eye. It doesn't mean seeing eye to eye as in like everyone understands everyone's feelings or agrees. It's more of like, hey, we're seeing eye to eye in the fact that everyone's feelings are important, and just making that known within the family.
Yeah. Thank you, Jen. Glenn, so do you feel like that's a Western thing of walking on eggshells? Do you feel like it's Australians in general, or do you feel like it's more you?
I think it's more me, to be honest.
You're away from your mic, buddy.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I don't think I think Australians in general are much more open, but it always comes down to it's an individual thing. I think overriding that. But I've got two comments on the question. I see it's a mentality of what's in it for me rather than what can I do for you in the family.
Right.
It's a self-focus away from the community focus. That's where I'm coming on that one. But I was going to ask you a question, JC. You said that when your dad broke his back, that the family came together, did brilliantly.
Mm-hmm.
So, are you implying that when there's not adversity, you don't connect as well, or is that not the true understanding?
100%. That's 100% right. If it's serious, if ambulances need to be called or if doctors need to be included in some way. Same thing happened. My aunt Becky, my dad's sister, came for a visit during Christmas time, and she had some kind of seizure, and she almost died in the hospital here. And everybody did the same thing. Everybody, made sure she was taken care of and talked to the doctors and, spent time at the hospital waiting, to get results and things, and help kind of nurse her back to health until we could get her back to Michigan where she lives. And it was a long struggle for her. It took over a year to get her use of her arm back. One of her arms was kind of partially paralyzed. I forget what it was. It was some kind of meningitis. That's what it was. It was some kind of meningitis.
Yikes. Dangerous
situation. Yep. So same thing there. But if it's something on a much smaller scale, it's almost like it gets kicked to the curb, quoting one of your questions coming up. Yeah, absolutely. I feel that. And I also feel like certain members of the family get a different status, at least in my family. I feel like, my dad, obviously, when it happened to him, he's the patriarch of the family. And it certainly was true for my mother when she was alive, that if something went on with her, now she would tend to isolate, which is kind of what I do, more than tell everyone what's going on and get everyone involved. It's more of a silent suffering kind of thing. I've learned to reach out, but why? I sometimes when I reach out, I don't get the reaction that I'm expecting from my family, where from friends, I get a completely different reaction. I have people that have never met me in person that are more willing to help me in some ways than my own family is. And that isn't a woe is me kind of thing. I'm just being honest about the situation I'm in. I mean, I can't make it. All I can do is react better in my own life to the situations that my family puts me in, or I can choose not to be involved in certain things, but that's the reality of the situation that I'm in. So two things, Glenn, to answer your question. Yes, it seems like if it's a serious thing, like I know that, God forbid, if I were in a car accident and ended up in the hospital, I know that my family would show up. They would step in and do what they needed to do. But if it's not that serious, then it's just kind of like everyone's just like, oh, it'll clear up. And sometimes it doesn't clear up. And sometimes there are hurt feelings when that attitude is taken. And when I see, again, people that are what I would consider acquaintances that are more willing to jump in and help than my own family, that's a difficult realization to come across. and take the focus off me. I mean, there are plenty of other families that feel similar. Jen passed along a scapegoat daughter, which is a YouTube channel, and you can quickly tell in her story that her family treats her differently than they do the other daughter. The other daughter, I don't know how many of you out there are familiar with any of the psychological titles such as golden child or scapegoat or black sheep. But it's a family hierarchy thing that is set up where one child is picked to be the golden child, and they're generally held in a different position. And then someone's chosen to be the scapegoat or the black sheep, and they're given a different role to play. So it's certainly not just me. They're all over the place. There are people that within their own families. And in this one, in the scapegoat daughter, their family had her put it away because I believe that the narcissistic mother wanted to have complete control over her and messed around with her medical records and stuff because she works in a clinic, and had her committed for 5 days to a what do they call that, Jen? Mental health.
Mental ward.
Yeah, mental
assessment.
What is it?
An assessment.
Yeah, assessment. Yeah, mental health assessment. Yeah.
Psychiatric facility.
There you go. But it was like at the hospital, not at like a insane asylum.
Yeah, yeah. So that's how they chose to deal with that situation, rather than whatever the person was going through, to band together and help them figure out what's going on. And I never dealt with anything like that. It's on a much smaller scale. I'm just making the point that other people go through the similar thing. Okay. Did everyone answer question 1? I believe they did.
I think so.
Okay. Hello, Renee. I see you in there. Sarah Jane, welcome. It's good to see you. Talking Doctrines here. He's in the chat. He's in the chat. Why aren't you on the panel?
Hey, Matthias.
Hey, Matthias. Hope you're doing all right, buddy.
What's up?
What's that?
What's up?
Hey, Renee.
Yeah. He's resting. Okay. Oh, he might have sent a text. I didn't look at it. I don't know. Question 2. Oh, he did send a text. Matthias, if you can hear me, it's up to you. Yep, I see your message. Yeah, thank you. Sorry. You did contact me. Yeah, if you need to rest, no problem. If you want to jump on, you can. No issues whatsoever. Do what's best for you, seriously. Question 2. I believe in the kind of love that doesn't demand me to prove my worth and sit in anxiety. I crave a natural connection where my soul is able to recognize a feeling of home in another. Something free-flowing, something simple, something that allows me to be me without question. Considering the quote, many believers may say, this sounds more like what I feel with God than people. We now ask, how does this work in real life? So, correct me if I'm wrong, Glenn, but your question here is, if someone says, this is the way I feel with God, but not people, then how do we get that same kind of connection in real life? And using question 1 as a pattern with family.
Correct.
Okay. Steve, you want to take that one first?
Spell it out again.
Yeah. So if you're having this kind of connection from above, the feeling of home with God and the free flowing, simple, something, relationship with God, he allows you to be you without question. I mean, he wants to have you be more like him, but you get the general idea. I don't want to go off onto a tangent on that one.
Yes.
So how does that work in real life? How do we get that same connection we feel if we have it with God? Then how do we also get that with people, with family members and with friends? That free flowing, simple feeling of home, not sitting in the anxiety. Steve? Steve? Can anybody else hear me?
Yeah, you're clear.
Okay.
I can hear you.
All right, Steve, I don't know. It says that your mic's off, but I'm not able to hear you. Okay. I can't hear you, Steve.
Even when he doesn't speak, he still used up time.
Yeah, I know. That's right.
Oh,
He came back.
Darn
Steve,
it.
there you go.
I lost my service.
Miss Service.
I lost my service there. Quarter a minute there. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Ask the question again, please.
How does it work in real life if you have that connection with God where it's simple and free flowing and you're not sitting in anxiety with God? It's a natural connection. Your soul is able to recognize a feeling of home with God. How can we also have that with people, with our family? How does it work in real life?
Time, investment, communication,
Mm-hmm.
care, like getting to know them.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you get to know God more and more each day.
Right.
You talk to God. All these types of things that we should be doing as a believer with God, we should be doing with other people. It's we're to share each other's burdens. Well, how can you share someone's burdens if you don't know what they are?
Yeah. You
Yeah,
can.
and that's with friends, family, anybody. And with God, His burden for us is to reach the lost. So um, that's His, that's His desire is, for people to be saved. So that should be our desire number one, and to love each other,
Mm-hmm.
to show love. So that's more than just saying it; it's showing it.
Yeah.
So that's how you do it from a God to people perspective. You actually have to do something and be involved in your family's life and people's lives. Get to know them.
Right.
You know, find out what makes them happy, what makes them sad, what's going on in their life. The good times, the bad times.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of a thing.
Perfect. Thanks, Steve. Jen, I liked what you said in chat. You said, I think a part of it is both people need to be authentic, but we can be authentic with others whether they are with you or not. Do you want to spread that out a little bit? Yeah, expound. Yeah.
Expound on that. Yeah, I think for there to be, just like it is with God, I believe God is authentic with us. And so, really and truly, it's like the ball's in our court all the time,
Mm-hmm.
to be authentic with Him. And I don't know, I guess it seems easier with Him
Sure.
for some reason. But with other people, I think to have a healthy relationship, a kind of symbiotic relationship, both people have to be authentic. And that, it takes some learning. Takes some getting over fear of being afraid. People won't accept you the way you are.
Yeah.
But I think when you're confident in who you are and who God has created you to be, that's where that confidence comes from, where you know that you can be authentic and be yourself. And if people don't like it or they don't understand it, or they like, for me, I think being authentic scares some people away. Some people don't want authenticity. They want the games of the world. They want the fake facade and they don't want to be around authentic people because then it makes them uncomfortable.
Sure.
But it's just about being okay with that, being okay, and knowing that the right people are going to come along, that you're going to meet, that are going to be authentic as well, and it just clicks, it just works.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Do you think you get to the point where that's all that you want is authentic relationships?
I think so. I think I know I'm in that place, but I do understand that I can't force somebody to be authentic.
Right.
And there are some relationships in my life that I don't necessarily want to push away because the other person doesn't know how to be authentic or they don't want to.
Right.
So there's kind of like it's still tough.
Yeah.
Like I have a really hard time talking about the weather. I really like talking about deep stuff.
Right.
But I do have family and friends that can't do that for whatever reason, and I don't kick them to the curb.
Right.
Like Glenn said, KERB.
Yeah.
However you spelled it in the notes was great.
Yeah.
But it is harder. You know, it's definitely harder, and I connect on such a deeper level with people that can be authentic and be brave enough to be authentic, because it does take courage. But I tell you, once you go there, you can't go back. It's just
that's true.
It's like I can't live that other way.
Nope.
So
yeah, and if you can find at least one person you can be authentic with that wants the same from you, and you're willing to be authentic, because that is still a risk to even for you to be authentic is a risk.
Yeah.
Because it isn't dependent on whether the other person is. If you do find someone that is, then great. I mean, that works out perfectly.
Yeah.
I agree with your point, though, that it does take two people, and you can be authentic in and of yourself, even if the other person isn't. You would just keep presenting the same front again and again and again.
Yeah.
So on my end, I would agree that the way that it works, if you have it first with God, God is God. So he doesn't deal with human frailty and the same mistakes that humans have. Humans aren't capable of doing that. I would say that the more that they focus on Christ and the more that they have a relationship with him, the easier it is for them to enter into that place of being open and authentic with other people, regardless of who it is, whether it's friends or members of family or whatever. Obviously, some relationships are going to be harder than others. If it's the key person in your life, or there's some past situations, as Steve mentioned, if there's any unforgiveness or there are any issues from the past that haven't been dealt with, then each new issue that comes up is being put on top of, it's like a layer being put on top of other things that weren't dealt with before. So in every situation, it's better to deal with things as they come, bring them to the table right away and talking about it, and not having an add-on to other things.
Yeah.
Matthias, I appreciate you coming on, and it's no problem that you were late. I certainly get that. You're a busy guy, and we certainly understand that. And we're just happy that you're here. So if you're ready to answer question 2, and I'll lay it out again for you, just what we're getting at. Glenn has done a beautiful write-up, and question 2 reads, I believe in the kind of love that doesn't demand me to prove my worth and sit in anxiety. I crave a natural connection where my soul is able to recognize a feeling of home in another, something free-flowing, something simple, something that allows me to be me without question. Considering the quote, many believers may say this sounds more like what I feel with God than people. We now ask, how does this work in real life? How does that work with people for you, Matthias?
Man, that's I think it's the other way around, as in the type of relationship that people have with people is what they should be looking for with God. As in, how do you build relationships with people? How do you sometimes there's natural connections. But I would say that every relationship needs to be built upon.
Right.
I don't think that there's any real relationship you have in life that's not the case. So I wouldn't think that it would be different with God. So it's about forming relationships. It's about communication, and it's about growing closer together.
Yeah.
And I think that would be how you would approach your relationship with God. That's what I always suggest to people. don't take my word for it. Go to God and ask him.
Yep.
Let him reveal it.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that in some ways God's more accessible because he's always there, and where people might not be there for you. I mean, if a person was to turn to him, they can know that he's going to respond, where a person may not give you that same thing.
Right. Good point. And actually, the benefit of God is he's omnipresent.
Yeah.
He is always there.
Yeah. That's what yeah, exactly. It's built into his resume.
Right.
His very existence is such that he's always there, for sure. Thanks, Matthias. I appreciate it. Glenn, did you have anything you wanted to add or a comment you wanted to make about question 2?
I think it's really not that difficult. I think once you get to the point that you're just prepared to open up, throw yourself out there, it's amazing how the people that you have that are of like show up.
Yeah.
I think Jen sort of alluded to that once she changed her mindset and just said, "Look, I'm sick of the crap. I'm now. I really don't care what people think of me. I'm just going to be me. Take it or leave it."
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, all these people that embrace that same concept just show up.
Yeah. For sure.
It's really weird. It's just like it happens, and you don't have to do anything except be yourself.
Yeah. So for me, the open sign that it's flashing on the screen right now, this is something that I picked for many reasons. One is because I made the comment to Glenn and also to Jen a long time ago. It was like 20 some odd shows ago. It might have even been before that, since I started using it. Was that for a long time, in many ways, emotionally, my sign, that the invisible sign said closed, open in certain ways, but closed in other ways. And I love the idea of having a diner. And I kind of talk about my life as a diner that I've set up, and that for a long time that had a close sign on it and was not open for business. And then when God started to work in my heart and life and help me get to the point of opening back up again and reaching out more to people and being available for relationships, after having been in some things that were really hurtful to me and trusting people that I should have never trusted, and being, kind of stabbed in the back and betrayed and things like that. So, the general feelings that a lot of people go through in human relationships. When that changed for me, my sign changed. And much like what Glenn said, when you're open to that, you're just deciding to be authentic and you're deciding to walk in a different path, and your light comes on, people can see that and they just show up. So in really in the grand scheme of things, in a very short period of time, it's been started a little before 2 years ago, but really over the past 2 years, and certainly over the past year, I have a lot more people that have shown up that are open and authentic and much more accessible in terms of relationship. So it does have a lot to do with the person themselves and what they're open and available for. Just as Jen was saying, that she's looking for relationships like that. And even though there are people in her life that she cares about that aren't able to, not being able to me is different than being able and deciding not to. So if someone's unable to because they just haven't learned, they can learn. If they're fighting it, or if their sign is closed, and not only closed, but they don't want anyone else that's open to come in or have anything to do with them, then it kind of closes the door on that to begin with. Okay, we'll move on. I think everybody answered question 2. So question 3 is, if you are one of the fortunate, is a true connection with self and another effortless or effortful? If you're one of the fortunate, Steve, is a true connection with self and another effortless or effortful?
Yes.
Both.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
You know, you have people in life where you feel like you connect instantly on a deeper plane than others.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's in part because, like what you're talking about, you're looking for that. You're
Right.
looking for a deeper relationship with a friend,
Yeah.
a loved one, or something like that. You're so you're looking for that. So somebody else comes along that's also looking for that, and you start talking on that plane already. Yeah, it's effortless at first, but no relationship is effortless.
Oh, that's true.
Every relationship that lasts requires effort, time, communication, just like what Matthias was saying. And one thing I would add to, what he said, with God being omnipresent, he's also, you know, once we're in Christ, he'll never leave us either.
Oh, yeah.
So that's another distinction between our relationship with God and our relationship with people. People can leave us. People can walk away. People can hate us after they said they loved us. You
Oh, my
know,
gosh. Yeah.
people can say they'll be real with you and then end up being fake with you.
Oh, my gosh.
And that's, how we end up having those, hurt feelings and closed signs for a while, because, we don't want to go through that again. But here's the thing. Love with God does not require risk to receive his love. He's already given it, and it's already been offered, provided, paid for us to have.
Mm-hmm.
Love with people requires risk.
Mm-hmm.
And it always will, it always does, because you have to put yourself out there, especially if you've gone through a lot of pain in your life. You also, learn to have to go through that pain in order to learn to love yourself properly with the help of God, especially, and to be able to love others properly, because the Bible says to love neighbors as yourself.
Right.
So if you don't know you and know how God sees you, you can't love other people like God loves them, with true love.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, I completely agree. I would say that it is both effortless and effortful. I would agree with what Steve said, is that sometimes relationships, especially ones that are worth it, they're going to have difficulty. It's great if they don't. Sometimes it's great if it's effortless, and effortless seems easier. But I've also found that when there's effortful things happening, a lot of times the result of that is more effortless moving forward. So in other words, something comes along and the two people deal with it, whatever that is, even a disconnection in some way, or a feeling of disconnect, and then you end up talking about it and get to the other side of it, and then there tends to be a freer flow. So it doesn't mean that there's not ever any effort put in. We tend to just kind of breeze through the effortless parts, and then the effortful parts come along, and it like I said, it can lead to better things moving forward. Any relationship worth anything to you, when the effort parts come along, or trouble, or circumstances arise, or difficult feelings, if the two people can come to the table and be able to discuss it openly, without any hurt feelings, or without any expectation that the other person's going to leave or yell or make you feel bad about your feelings and things like that, then it can be beneficial to both people. Definitely true with God. the effortful part comes when we struggle with obedience, in my opinion, and also maybe not understanding what he wants. But we can easily fix that by a relationship with him and by reading his word and understanding it more, and by following what he asks us to do, which Steve had mentioned, the idea of loving your neighbor as yourself and looking at other people like that. First knowing yourself, understanding how you work and how God works. And you can't understand him fully. But he does want to get to know us. And I love the point that's very true is that once we have God, then he never leaves us or forsakes us, where people do. People definitely do. But you have the best chance possible with someone that understands this concept of being open and authentic. And if they have just that effortless, come sit at the table and talk about it and have a true connection. So I think I do feel fortunate. I do feel fortunate to have a relationship with God and have an understanding and to have my frame of reference kind of pulled in that direction. It does, at least in my own mind, it gives me a better connection to who I am and who other people are through that. Okay. Jen, did you want to comment?
Yeah, you kind of stole my answer, but
I'm sorry.
But no, I do think it's effortless and effortful. It's more with people that are connecting on an authentic level and just open and honest with each other. I think there's more effortless than there is the effortful. But like you said, which is such a good point, there's times that even in that kind of relationship, an open and authentic relationship, you get to these points where you hit a hard bump or spot.
Yeah.
And it takes some effort to get over that spot. And but it just leaves you closer, and it adds to, it's almost like a building a foundation of safety. So it actually plays into the continuation of the effortless,
right?
Because there's safety there. So
safety.
It's a good thing to feel.
Yeah, absolutely. So providing a safe place for the other person and them also providing a safe place for you is extremely helpful.
Yeah.
Matthias, do you have a comment for question 3?
Not really different. Sorry. I've got my young one talking about her tooth falling out.
Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah. She's excited about it. But
she should be. That's something to be excited about.
Especially at 6 years old.
I know. Yeah. When it happens in your 40s, that's
right. Right. Maybe the 80s you're all right.
Yeah.
40s now.
No.
Really there's not much to say other than what you guys said, because it's both. I like what Steve said. Yes.
Yeah.
The answer is yes. It's effortless in the fact that when you connect with God or anybody else, it flows. That we're created as spiritual beings, and we communicate with each other in that way, and it free flows.
Yeah.
And God is a spirit. Those who worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. So
yeah.
But it does take effort.
Yeah.
So there really is no other answer than both.
Perfect.
Now here's a question. Can effort feel effortless?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I think it can. Especially compared to other people. Some people, it seems like it's effort just to even talk about their feelings to begin with. Not to mention understand them fully, but just to be able to even bring it up and say, I'm feeling angry right now. I'm not sure why. The person's like, angry? What right do you have to feel angry? That happened to me. I said to someone else, I was angry. And they were, well, I'm angry at you. Well, why are you angry at me? You're just mirroring, and you're triggered by me being angry, so you're deciding to be angry at me. So yeah, it depends. It certainly depends on the person, but I do agree that effortful for one person is effortless for another.
That is classic narcissistic behavior for somebody to do that.
Whoa, Steve.
They flip it back on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is classic narcissism. Classic.
Classic. Wow.
Wow. Wow. They need Jesus.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'll have to think about that one. I'm not going to mention who that was, Steve.
I don't know who it was either, but yeah, I mean, they may not. They may or may not be saved, but they need Jesus in that situation and why they're reacting that way.
I agree. And the person did apologize and take responsibility for it. I think it was a momentary narcissistic thing.
Tendency.
Tendency. Thank you, Jen. You rescued me there. Great. Appreciate that. Yeah, a tendency toward narcissism rather than maybe a.
We all have that, I think, because of the sin nature.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. Yeah, the person was totally in their flesh in that moment, for sure. She said, and I quote, I got into the sandbox and acted bratty, end quote. So that was pretty accurate, I thought. Perfect. Okay. Glenn, do you have a comment to make about this particular question?
Yep.
Perfect.
Maybe a little bit different from the general. Okay, Jen said you have to build safety. I think when you actually connect with someone who's authentic, you have safety automatically. It's a given.
Oh, I just got chills up the back of my spine. I completely agree.
Okay, so I find that with the people I'm really connected with, it's effortless. It may be requiring effort, but it surely does not feel it. What I find it's effortful is with people that I'm not quite connected with. That's excruciating because you never can quite get on wavelength, and you're always trying to find the key to the door to get on, but you just struggle to get there, and you usually don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me.
Do you think it's difficult when you look at another person and you feel like they should know that you're a safe person, but they might struggle with that? Do you feel it's difficult to feel safe for another person, but they're not able to connect to that?
I just need you to say that again, please.
Sure. If you know that you're a safe person, you, Glenn, are a safe person, and you have someone that you're in a relationship with, and they're not feeling safe, is that difficult for you to feel, knowing that you're safe, and for them not to be able to connect to that?
Well, for a start, I'd pick it up straight away. So I'd probably say to them, well, I'm just feeling something's off cue here.
Mm-hmm.
Can we talk about it?
Sure.
I mean, if you hold back, then you go nowhere. But the art is actually to bring it up in such a way that you're not confronting.
Sure.
It's more loving and just inquisitive rather than making the point that you're unsafe for me. Well, that sort of doesn't work too well either, because they're more likely to get their back up. Now, if you say that to someone, if you did, hypothetically, that you're connected with, they're just going to laugh at you because they know it's a load of garbage. So,
yeah.
Because you know yourself, you've got people that you're really authentically connected to, and as soon as you say something that's out of pattern, they're just going to look at you with a perplexed look on their face and said, "What are you trying to stir me up?" Or
right.
They know from the start that you're just taking the piss.
Yeah.
So I think that's my answer anyway.
Thanks. Yeah, and I also think that you can. I've learned this over the past year, but you can feel unsafe in a moment, but not feel safe, but feel safe overall. You can feel overall safe with the person, but be in a moment and have a feeling of anxiety, and it be a temporary thing, or it could be based on something else too. It may not have anything to do with the person themselves. And that changes over time too. The more you have places to practice that, the more safe you can feel with another person.
Yeah, usually with the people I'm connected with, it's instantaneous. That the second I get either in their space or can just doing it in another way, not necessarily in space, I know straight away. I don't even have to ask the question. It's a sort of inherent. If you call it intuition, it's probably a term that you don't like too much, but call it anything you like. I think
Sure.
Once you get tuned into it, you're going to be pretty well able to see it real fast. But in order to do that, you've got to be totally authentic yourself, of course.
Exactly. Now, Jen, you said in the chat, you said usually based on past trauma.
Yeah.
So that implies that a person might not feel safe in a situation based on that they've been through a lot of trauma and not feeling safe in general.
Yeah. And they might be triggered. And it's not so much the person they're with. It's just,
sure,
the safe person they're with. It's just memories and emotional flashbacks.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, emotional flashback would be something that a person goes through where they're feeling anxiety in a moment, and it has nothing to do with the moment itself, but something that is they're feeling something as a result of a past trauma. And then so the feelings come up, they're not able to really pinpoint why.
Understand why. Yeah.
I would like to add, if I could.
Of course, Steve.
I didn't want to interrupt you guys. You guys
Thank
are
you.
saying lots of good things. Couple things with the safe space thing. Like, I want to kind of define that a little bit so that because that phrase is thrown out a lot, and different people mean that in a different way.
Sure.
I believe when correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe when we're talking about a safe place, we're not talking about a place that is free of offense. It's a place where you are actually safe to say the things that might cause offense.
Yes.
And also a place where it's safe for you to hear the things that might cause you offense.
Even if it's hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
And be able to respond with the safety, knowing that at the end of talking about these kinds of things that are offensive, you can still love each other and be friends or be spouses or whatever at the end of it.
Yes.
Or brother and sister, mom and dad, mom's, parent-child relationship.
Correct.
Where that kind of safe place is cultivated, where we can say what's on our mind without fear of the relationship being ruined. Not the safe place of, don't say that to me, that offends me, I need to go into my safe place.
I see where you're going, Steve. You're talking about safe places in schools
where colleges, they actually have safe places where on college campuses and such, this is a safe place. This is an offense-free zone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is my reaction. That's totally inauthentic, me-central. That is self-focused.
It's the opposite of authentic, Steve.
Yeah. And the other thing with what you were talking about past trauma.
Yeah.
When I was involved in Celebrate Recovery, and we had a teaching, kind of more like a service type thing, where we had some worship music and then a teaching on recovery. And we usually started out with a meal prior to that. And then afterwards we'd break up into at least, two small groups, a men's small group and a women's small group, to go around sharing what was going on in our lives or what the message meant to us.
Yes. Yeah.
And sometimes people would share things from their past.
Right.
And we're able to create that kind of safe place where people didn't talk about what you just said.
Right.
They didn't try to give you advice or anything. But at the end of it, when we'd pray, and pray over each other.
Yeah.
After everybody had been done sharing, some people sharing stuff from 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yes.
Before we allowed anybody to leave, we'd
Yeah.
actually ask, what year is it? What day is it?
Yeah.
To get you back in today, because people sharing some of that stuff would actually,
Regress.
scientifically,
Yeah.
when you talk about something, you actually relive, your body remembers the emotions. And so it actually chemically kicks out the same chemicals to cause the same emotional reaction.
Yeah.
As the time period when whatever was going on in your remembering.
Mm-hmm.
Another reason why when somebody was sharing something extremely painful or traumatic or whatever, we would never touch them or try to hand them anything, because there were times where they're talking about somebody where they were a child and they were being beaten up. Now they're an adult male.
Oh yeah.
And they're talking about it from a 5-year-old place.
Yep.
And you touch that 30-year-old man, people have been struck.
Yeah, you got to be
react. Yeah, so
yeah, you got to know what you're doing.
Exactly. So, like, those are rules. Don't touch them. Don't talk. Don't try to hand them a tissue, because that can also stop the moment of them sharing.
Yeah.
Where what they've been through, and they don't get the healing of actually talking through it.
Right.
And so definitely, situations and places and things and even words can trigger emotional responses from past trauma that hasn't been dealt with. And that's why we did things like, what day is it? What year is it? To get your mind back to the present.
Absolutely. Hendricks made a comment. I want to bring this up, Steve. It's about you. He says, I like Steve's idea on this. Christians should be able to be open with each other and know there's actual grace and forgiveness in our congregations.
Amen.
Yeah.
Enough with the mask. Let's take them off.
This is what I want to add. Okay, so, and some of you have heard me say this before, but because of my mother's involvement in being a counselor and things like that, and her own work that she did in her life to be free of some of her dysfunctions, I got dragged along, and willingly I got dragged along to some of these groups, and I got involved in therapy groups where we would do what Steve's talking about. We would help someone deal with a past trauma, and some of us would even play roles, like either the father or the mother or the drunken uncle or whatever, and pretend to be that person and say the things that person heard that was hurtful, in hopes that they would be able to deal with that in a healthy way. And it was very much, Steve, like what you were talking about. But all of these people knew that it was a safe place. They knew that they could go ahead and bring this stuff up, and they weren't going to be criticized. There wasn't going to be crosstalk. No one was going to tell them how they're supposed to deal with it. Just help
exactly.
Get it out. And if that was the case in churches, this is the point I want people to understand. If that was the case in churches, if you could go to Bible study, or you could go to a small group, or you could go up to someone after Sunday school and say, "Look, I'm dealing with something in my life. I need help. I'm not in a good place, or I've got this situation I'm dealing with," and know that they can bring it forward and not be met with backstabbing and gossip and persecution,
judgment even.
Thank you, Jen. Then I believe the churches would be more full, and I believe that people would be able to look at them in a completely different light. Why is it more acceptable to go to a secular group where God's not involved at all, except in reference to him as a higher power, like in a 12-step group?
Yeah, you said something last night.
Yeah.
Profound about that. You said last night that you felt safer, and the things that you would share, you knew that sharing them at AA or something like that would be totally confidential. You wouldn't have to worry about anybody talking to anybody about it. Why? Yeah. I think that's exactly what you're about to say again. I was thinking it as you were talking about it. I'm like, you said that last night that, why, and like you say, why can't we do that in the church and be able to share those things and know it's not going anywhere?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if we could actually really talk about some stuff and actually get some real healing in the proper place.
Yeah, in the proper place, along with other Christian brothers and sisters that provide a safe place for you to share your walk with God and share the struggles that you're dealing with in your life, and not have it be met with backstabbing, not have it be met with division and rumors and spreading it around to other people that it's none of their business.
Yeah. And you shouldn't have to say to a room full of Christians, hey, by the way, this is confidential.
Yeah.
Please don't be talking about it with other people.
Yeah. But you're right, Jen, but you know what? Maybe they should start beginning like that and saying that, guys, what's said in here, that's what they say in Al-Anon and these other 12-step groups. What is said here stays here. It doesn't go beyond these walls. What you say in the room stays in the rooms.
Yeah. We do that in BSF.
Yep. And in CR.
Yep.
Celebrate Recovery.
Yep.
And what's interesting that is that in AA, as opposed to like a Christian recovery group or in a church, you only get the, like in AA, you get the confess your faults one to another.
Right.
You don't get the pray for each other so that you may be healed.
Right.
You get the confession part, which is great. It's, the first step towards that kind of healing. But, you don't get in the AA, you only get that unless you're lucky to find someone else in there. That's why I recommend Celebrate Recovery to anybody, whether you're struggling with an addiction to drugs and alcohol or past hurts and habits and hangups. It's a great place to be involved in and actually pursue that kind of healing for free, no charge.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Hendricks said, "Oh man, BSF needs to have the small group time be extended by an hour or so."
Yeah, it's like 5 minutes.
Yeah, what you find when you get into situations like that, you find that people have a lot to say and they're willing to open up about it if they know that they're safe to do so.
So true.
They want to open up. People don't want to keep this stuff all pinned up and inside and not share it.
Some people do.
Well, some people do.
They're crazy.
Well, I mean, I was going more from the idea that some people do because of what they've been met with when they have shared with someone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they have a tendency to keep that stuff bottled up because it hasn't been a good reaction sometimes to that. All right. Perfect. Guys, your answers are wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Did everyone get a chance to answer that question 3? I believe that they did. Okay.
Did Matthias
yeah.
that one?
Matthias said the similar answer to everyone else. He said a few things, but he did get a chance to respond. Yep. Question 4. Consider the relationship of members of a believing in God saved family. Is it possible disconnect has something to do with not being all on the same page beliefs-wise? So does something have to do with it in quote-unquote saved families with not being on the same page beliefs-wise? Steve, not being on the same page beliefs-wise, is that part of the problem?
If that's the focus.
What do you mean if that's the focus?
If your focus is on the doctrine and not love, then absolutely.
Oh, well, then that's your answer then. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So if the focus should be on something, but it's not, then the problems arise in that. The disconnect.
Right. It's like the phrase that's said very often in Coates and in some of our online circles here together. ULC, unity on the gospel, liberty on non-essentials, and all things in love.
Right.
Or all things in charity.
Right.
And if we do that, apply that in our families, you know, where one person believes in preaching, one person believes in no rapture, one person believes in speaking in tongues, the other person's like, no, that's not even a gift. You know, whatever it is, or those gifts went away. If we can have the unity on the gospel, on Jesus, and just love each other and talk about those things in an edifying way, then the focus shifts from I need to be right to how can I love you better. That's what should happen.
I agree. Great. Thanks, Steve. I appreciate that. Matthias?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's basically the same thing, because when it comes to the essentials, if they're not on the same page, then they're not saved. But on all the non-essentials, it could have to do with each of their own personal Bible reading. May not have to disconnect at all. So, I mean, if disconnect has something to do with not all being on the same page belief-wise. If they're not all on the same page belief-wise on essentials, then that's a hard issue. They've got bigger problems. On the little stuff, who cares? That's why we like to sharpen swords and have fun doing it.
Yes. Perfect. Okay, thank you, Matthias. Jen?
So I had to mute to sneeze.
No, that's okay. You sound kind of sneezy tonight.
Yeah, I'm sniffing a lot. Sorry, guys. I don't know if it's like the pollen or what.
It is pollen.
Are we on question 4 or?
Yeah, question 4. So, is it possible the disconnect has something to do with not being on the same page, beliefs-wise, in families, same families, believing in God, families?
Yeah, I think sometimes, but because I do think some people are more concerned about doctrine. It makes me think of the issue with Esteban that he shared on Steve's show last night. The issues he's having with his family. You know, they're all believers, but there's some doctrine that doesn't line up with his, and the family's just getting all bent out of shape and calling names and just being very hurtful. So I think that's a shame, because I think we're, you know, aside from doctrine, we're called to love each other, even non-believers. So I mean, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Jen.
You're welcome.
I would agree with what everyone else has said, especially if the essentials are not on the same page. I think the question goes also into what each individual person's own beliefs are. That they do matter. The way that they view God, the way they view themselves, whether they feel safe in the relationship or not, that plays a big part. The being safe thing, they should be focused on the correct thing, which Steve mentioned as being love. They're focused on love rather than the particular doctrines or slight differences, especially in non-essentials. Like he said, rapture. That's a good example. So one family member believes rapture, another person believes second coming. There's no separate rapture, whatever the case may be. You can still have a connection to someone. Just you have different beliefs of prophecy and the way it's all going to pan out. Again, if you're focused on Christ, you're focused on love, you're focused on the Bible, and living your life in a way that puts Him first all the time. Your belief of when Jesus is coming back or when the quote unquote rapture occurs or doesn't occur shouldn't keep you in a disconnected place. But people do let it happen. That's part of the same division that we've talked about many times that we see happening. we see people tearing each other up, both claiming to be believers, and a lot of times it's hypo Christians, as I think Matthias. I'm not sure he came up with that one himself or not, but I think he's the first one I heard use it. Also, false converts. I mean, that's been around for a long time. People who say that they're believers and they're not. They're focused on definitely the wrong thing pretty much the whole time. So it can be, in my opinion, it can be based on not being on the same page. And I would add, not even just belief-wise, just in the way they view life altogether. The way they view dealing with crisis or conflict resolution. The way that they deal with that might be different too. Glenn, did you have a comment to make about a question for us, sir?
Yeah, the question was framed simply because I've seen cases where people say, well, we believe in God, and then they're tearing each other's throats out. It doesn't, because of what goes on in the world and whether they anything else, but just because of their differences in beliefs, they can't even resolve that. So how on earth are they going to resolve getting on?
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. And again, if the focus was where it should be, then I don't think we'd be having all the same problems. If you understood that one of the biggest things Christ did, obviously he came to bring reconciliation between us and God, but also he told us to love one another. He exemplified love literally in everything that he did and what he did on the cross for our sins. It was complete and total love. Mm-hmm. So when we're offered that from him, how are we not able to offer that to other people?
Amen.
That's,
amen. Can I hop on that?
Of course you can, Steve.
Okay. I realized I didn't fully complete my answer, and that was perfect segue into what I also want to add, in that even if you are the only one in your family that you believe is truly saved, even if the rest think they're saved, and because of where they are, what they say they believe is wrong according to how we understand the gospel, even if that's the case, the person that is truly saved, even if they're the only one, should be the pivotal focal point of love in that family.
Agreed.
And, should be displaying Christ by, if they, be willing to discuss it, be willing to share it. But
right.
If they can't hear it or won't hear it, you should be going over backwards to show the love of Christ in your actions, and cultivating the kind of relationship and showing them like you would have wished somebody would have shown you the love of Christ prior to being saved.
Wow. Yeah, perfect. I'm glad you add to that, Steve. I agree 100%. That person should be shining the most light, whether it's in their family or friendships or anything else. And that part is effortless. That's not something you have to try to do. It's a natural byproduct of your relationship with God. And, in Glenn's case, and Glenn, you can answer for yourself, but in your case, it's a simple byproduct of realizing that you're a spiritual person and being connected at that wavelength, and rather than just biological.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why, even though that's probably why I feel at home here, because there's a lot of the elements in myself are actually expressed here. It's just that I don't have the specific God saved eternal life component, but that doesn't mean that unbelievers are devoid of any spirituality, for sure.
Yeah. Thanks, Glenn. And I just want to address something in chat real quick. Cupcake Puppy, yeah, it's, if you have anything, if anyone has any topics that you'd like us to discuss on the show, absolutely send it to my email, send it to one of us, and we'll definitely discuss it. I didn't see, I wasn't looking at the chat. I didn't see what topic you brought up, so I apologize for that. I do go back and look at the chats later, and so does Glenn, so we would have caught it. But if you have any comments for the show or any topics you want discussed, please definitely send me an email to truestorylive.crips@gmail.com, and we'll definitely look at it. We love to get suggestions. It's just that people don't usually do that. So anyone on the panel can say, I've been saying that since day one. I stopped saying it because it just, a lot of people didn't follow up on that, of saying that we did want suggestions. We do want topics for the show. We come up with topics based on a certain pattern of things, but if there was a topic that came up, even if it didn't fit into the general overall concept, we would discuss it, especially if it was something pertinent to real life. So please send that along for sure. Okay, so question 5. Is it possible to form a true connection between someone who allies? This is a good one. I've been waiting for this one. Is it possible to form a true connection between someone who allies their sense of achievement in being busy with works and working? Those are both in quotes. Compared with someone who does not have the working mentality, also in quotes, but is primarily about living, people, and relationships. Steve, you get to go first on that one. Right up your alley.
Read that one to me one more time.
No problem whatsoever. Is it possible to form a true connection between someone who allies their sense of achievement in being busy with works and working, compared with someone who does not have the working mentality, but is primarily about living, people, and relationships? So we're talking about works-based versus grace-based. Works-based versus resting in Christ's finished work.
Okay. Okay. Is it possible to form meaningful relationships?
Yeah.
Which is easier? Well, it depends on what you're talking about, really. Are you talking about a deep friendship that goes to the type of fellowship that a believer should have with another believer? Then the answer is going to be obviously grace alone, faith alone. And if you're seeking to build a relationship with somebody who you know is not saved or is in a works-based gospel, who there would be, a very big question as to their salvation, most likely not saved, and just period, an atheist, anybody in that kind of category of an unbeliever, it's a different kind of relationship, and in the fact that you are trying to get to know them, know about them, so that you can share in what is going on with them and be able to not just tell them the gospel, but share the gospel in how you treat them and love them and show them Christ by accepting them for where they are, not judging, not saying, no, you can't, I can't be in a relationship with you because you do this or you do that,
Right.
No, I'm looking past those things to the you that needs Jesus, and I'm trying to figure out a way, whether by speech or action, to share that with you.
Okay, let me put a finer point on it, Steve, because this is very particular here.
Okay.
The question is about can you have a true connection between someone living in works and someone who's resting in Christ's finished work?
Yes, absolutely. It's just a different kind of true connection.
Okay.
Where with it goes deeper for someone believer to believer. Really, I can't explain it any other way than that, because there's a camaraderie in the gospel that you cannot find with someone who's not saved. That doesn't mean it can't be a genuine, authentic relationship.
Yeah.
It's just lacking that element that bonds on the deepest plane. And now I will add to this that in the grace alone, faith alone group, we also do believe in doing good works, not to have salvation or keep it, but we do believe in doing good works to show, and that's the whole point.
It's a natural
in the right, and the whole point, like, if you really believe it's cold outside and you want to stay warm and well and healthy,
yeah,
you're going to put a coat on. And in the grace alone category, you can't get that coat but from Jesus Christ.
Right. Amen.
So
That's
if you
it.
truly believe it, you're going to have that coat on, and then you're going to tell other people, hey, it's cold outside, go get a coat from Jesus.
Right.
You know, it changes your reality when, and how you see the world, when that reality has implanted itself in you to where you truly believe Jesus is the Christ, the only way to salvation.
Okay, so Jen, you just mentioned in chat you think that Glenn meant for this to be a comparison between a person who busies themselves all the time with work and doing things, and a person who holds spending time in relationships instead.
That's correct. That's how I meant it.
Okay, so
thank you, Jen.
Yep.
You're welcome.
So if a person is busying themselves all the time and they're not making time for relationships, I think it's very difficult to have a relationship with them because they're not allowing the time for it.
Exactly.
So if in my case, for instance, if I'm trying to have a relationship with someone who's working all the time and I keep saying, I want to spend time with you, we need to talk about something, and they don't make the time for you, then the answer is no. There can't be a connection. There can't be a true connection because the person's always busy, and they prove by their actions, by their words, rather than their actions, that it's not important to them. Because I believe that people make time for what's important, even if they're busy.
Yeah.
I know that if I'm busy,
and it shows their true. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Jen.
I was gonna say it shows their true. What is the word? What their priorities are.
Yeah.
You know, the actions.
Yeah. Intention.
Yeah, intention.
Yeah,
their true intention.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks, Steve.
I don't think that you can. I don't think you can have a true connection if they're not allowing time for it. That's the bottom line for me. Are they capable? Yeah. I mean, I'm going to have to bring it up to the person and say, this is the way that I feel. If you don't want this to be true, then I need more action in when I say I need to spend time with you, or I have something I need to talk about. I need you to try to make time, not try, but to make time. So it's both people's responsibility in the relationship, in my opinion. One person needs to lay it out there, and the other person at least has an opportunity to say yes or no. If it's not brought up, then the other person can't read minds. So thanks, Jen, for laying it out there. So what would your answer be then? Do you want to add anything else to that?
Yeah, I would just say no. Because you can't force somebody to make you a priority.
Right. So what do you do then,
and like
Jen?
we were talking about before with effort, you know, is effort less effortful? If someone refuses to put in the effort that it takes to make somebody else a priority, or to connect and spend time with them,
yeah,
and not busy themselves with so many other things, whether it be a career or kids, or I mean, it could be many things.
Could be.
It's just, you know, I mean, I think it's up to the other person to make their feelings known and speak up and say, hey, I'm not feeling like you care about me, or I'm not feeling like you're connecting with me, or that we're connecting. The house is on fire, or whatever. But if the other person refuses to see it, or, you know, there's not much you can do, because it takes two. It takes two.
It does take two. So if you bring it to the person, kind of what I was saying is, if you bring it to the person and you lay it all out there and they still say, yeah, I don't have the time, then you have your answer. And so you would just move forward on your own then. You wouldn't expect that in the relationship. You would have to take that stance. Thanks, Jen.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Matthias? The person's working all the time and not available for a relationship, then is it possible to have a true connection?
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard, but what about those families who that's the predicament they're in?
I mean, they're working all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, let's say a father has to be on the road all the time. Or
hi.
Yeah. Hi, Steve. He's waving. Nobody can see him. He's waving.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's sometimes where just because there's inability doesn't mean it should necessarily affect your relationship. But for the most part, if somebody's not willing to work on it, then, you know, it ain't gonna work.
Right.
All relationships should be mutual. Otherwise, it's totalitarian.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
So, I would say that it's difficult, but I mean, sometimes a relationship is 70-30 or 80-20,
right?
And that works out awesome for each other because they're 80-20 in one aspect of their life, but then they're 90-10 in another. You know, so
well, that you're talking about a give and take, though. You're talking about
give and take
type person. Thing. Yeah.
So as long as there's a mutual give and take, then it works.
Yeah, agreed.
But if it's all one person giving and the other person always taking, then that ain't right.
Yeah, totally.
But to answer the question, I mean, if you're talking about people's pride and just, I'm not going to work on the relationship because I don't want to, like, yeah, you can't deal with that. But if you're talking about situations the way that the world and Satan has made, you know, everyone needs two incomes and stuff like that. If you're talking about that, then try to work around and be able to have a relationship either way.
Amen. Cool. Thanks, Matthias. Appreciate it. Glenn, did you have a comment you want to make? Now we got it all ironed out.
I think it's a no, but I think I think that the key point that I tried to make was connection between someone who allies their sense of achievement in being busy with work. Now that's different. If Steve's on the road driving his truck, that doesn't mean his whole life is based around the achievement of being on the road.
Right.
And
correct.
And working for a living to support his family. It was deeper than that. It was about the person who's so preoccupied with being busy that they don't have time, inverted commas, for a relationship. And I think in that case, it can't happen. I can't see how you can form a connection if someone is just does not even see the fact that there may be a connection available from someone because they're just focused so far off to the side.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that a person who has that sense of achievement derived from works is going to judge you, the other person, on your works.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's not going to work either. That's just going to make it worse. So I see it's a no.
Yep. Perfect.
Which is why lordship relationships are fake.
Yeah, they're plastic. They're fabrications.
Because they're each secretly judging each other, whether
absolutely
they admit it or not.
Absolutely. And that definitely makes it hard for the person that's resting in any finished work. when the other person's judging them by their lack of works, when they're affiliated or aligned to working for everything, both as far as salvation is concerned and also added to that just in their life in general, where everything's based on work. I think it's difficult. As I said, though, at least in my case, I take it as my responsibility to bring it to the table and to at least give the person an opportunity and lay it out there. Here's what I see. Here's what I'd like to have, and then the person can say yes or no. It's laid out there. At least that's what I will choose to do. My relationships are important. The ones I have, I consider them important. So if there's a lack in some way and it's being brought to my attention, it's coming to the surface for me to deal with, then I'm going to I'm going to deal with it. I would choose not to run away or hide from that. I would choose to bring it forward, even though it might be difficult. So that's very helpful. Thanks for the question, Glenn. That's a good one. What?
I was wanting to piggyback on something Matthias said.
Oh, go ahead. We have time. We have one more question.
Okay, I'm just saying, with what he said about Satan's, getting us all to have to be in two-parent working relationships. I am so grateful that even though I am away from home a lot, that I am the only one working.
Right.
Because I don't know. I honestly can't say that the situation with my stepson would have actually been the way it is right now.
If you were home.
If she was working.
Oh, if she was working.
And not able to be as involved and around and there for support.
I hear you.
With her, with the kids.
Right.
As she is now. And so I mean that's a something. When he said that, I'm like, oh wow, yeah. I'm because it's been a struggle at times when I've been the only one working, and it's been really hard sometimes to provide financially without the extra income. But we've just kept going because she can't, and I'm actually grateful for the fact that she can't work, because what would have happened had she not been there to be more of a support for him. So yeah, I'm just grateful there with that.
Amen. Thank you, Steve. Glad you added that. All right, one more question and then we'll call it a night. So question 6, any other reasons why sometimes our friends feel like family, yet family don't feel like friends? And you can go again, Steve. Any other reasons why sometimes our friends feel like family, yet family don't feel like friends?
Yep. There's 2 statements that I come to mind with that question. Blood is thicker than water, and blood doesn't make family.
Okay.
And the 2 statements contradict each other.
Uh-huh.
And believe it or not, it was on Boy Meets World that I heard the correct one.
What's the correct one?
Blood doesn't make you family. How you treat people makes you family.
Woo! Wow. Pulled from the pages of a secular half-an-hour TV sitcom back in.
That's the only thing I really remember.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, I remember a few things, but they're not really, for a 12, 13-year-old boy thinking Topanga was fly. But I mean, that's the only other thing I really remember that had an impact on me was, that you can have family without it needing to be blood.
Okay.
And that's beautiful.
Yeah. And I mentioned this earlier in the show, but for me, this is question 6 is a big one, because in my situation, I expected family to be there for me, and when they weren't, there were people that were friends, considered friends, not blood relatives, that stepped up and made sure to become available for me. it was a real lesson too, because it forced me to look at the reality of the situation I was in my own family, and see it for what it was. And it took having some friends, like I said, step forward and be willing to come alongside. That's, remember, you said that last night, Steve, and I reacted to saying alongside, coming alongside. Because I say that too, coming alongside someone regardless of the situation and helping deal with the problem. Jen said house is on fire. That's another phrase that I've used before. While the house is on fire, the first thing to do is put the fire out or get the people out. It's not to talk about, well, I'm too busy, or well, you did this 20 years ago, or whatever the case may be. It's take care of the fire, and then you can sort it all out later. Then you can try to find your photo albums and pick up the pieces and see what's left. Deal with the problem at hand first, and then move forward. But anyway, the point is, I was taught some valuable lessons over the past few weeks, and one of them is that sometimes friends are more valuable in a way of being able to come alongside you when your family can't or don't want to. So that's a big lesson for me. Jen?
I think sometimes family can get us stuck in roles that we've played in our past, or roles that they think we've played and that they've assigned us to. Right. Like, I know my parents, I'm 38, and my parents, I think, still they still see me as this teenager, and I'm like, no.
Right.
I'm a grown up. I'm smarter than I was back then,
Totally.
I still have a lot to learn. I get that. But the stuff I've been through has taught me quite a bit, and I'm very introspective and aware, pretty aware.
Sure.
So yeah, I think when it comes to comparing that to friends, I think friends have, and not all the time, this isn't all the time. Sometimes family does have more grace. Depending on their situation, sometimes family has more grace for you than friends. Sometimes it's flipped.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like sometimes your friends don't have this whole history with you that your family does, and they tend to have an easier time extending grace. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Jen.
Welcome.
Matthias?
Well, it's kind of funny. The Bible says a prophet's not without honor, save in his own house. So, family always has issues. Religion, especially true Christianity, while we've talked about how to keep everybody together and show peace and respect and love, and it boils down to, it's not, our faith actually does bring division. Jesus said himself, I've come not to bring peace,
but a sword.
Yeah. And so, when it comes to your family, I mean, my sister told me, look, Matthias, I'm not going to change what I believe because what you tell me.
Right.
And I'm like, the only thing that matters is what you believe. So if it's because it's coming from me,
yeah,
that's the reason why you won't believe, then I've actually taken the stance that with my sister and a few people that I know, and I know they love me, and they know I love them. I actually, to love them, I don't preach them the gospel anymore. They know the difference, but because my sister will never take anything from what her little brother tells her,
right?
He doesn't even believe in evolution anymore. He's crazy.
Wow. Yeah.
I can't. If I give her the truth more, she'll resent it more.
Right.
So, you know, when it comes to being a saint, family, your most immediate family is kind of tough.
Yeah.
When it comes to worldly speaking, I don't know. I think Jen hit the nail on the head. The family has the history.
Yeah.
We're all human. It's hard to forget sometimes, and people usually screw over their family members most because they know their family is not gonna put them in jail or something, you know. So,
right.
And then friends, it's a choice. And so when it's, you know, it was your lot who your parents are. It's not you couldn't choose who your parents were, but you can choose who your friends are. So there's got to be a dynamic there as well.
Right.
But for the most part, I think true family are the brothers and sisters in Christ.
Yep.
And that they're not represented here because your family in Christ, you don't even know them and they're like your best friend.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's like that's not represented here because it's family and friends combined when it comes to those who you're brother and sister in Christ with.
Yeah.
But I get the whole worldly family and friends issue.
Sure. Well, thanks, Matthias. I appreciate your answers. Glenn, do you have any comments about this last question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
With my family, and my mum and dad are dead now, but we never really had issues. But there was enough there for me to quite a while ago go to therapy about it because I could see other families and I thought, I could see a bit of this pattern. And basically what it came down to was I had to say to them, look, you don't know what's best for me. If you embrace my choices, we're going to get on fine. And they basically overnight they just gave up worrying about what I was going to do. Like, you know, can you afford to do this or should you do that? Or are you taking a risk? I said, look, just chill out.
Yeah.
I'm good. And once they embraced it, all of that history just fell to the floor, and it was really incredibly important in context of tonight's show is that I was absolutely driven to make sure there was no regrets.
Right.
If they passed and think I should have done that with my mum, I should have said that to my dad. I'm absolutely sure that I overindulged, if you like, with saying what need to be said, and they're gone now, and I've got no regrets, and that's such a thing you can just rest so easily with that. Like even when my mum died, I didn't even cry. It's really weird. I couldn't believe it. I've been trying to work through why, and I think it was just that we'd had everything so good.
Yeah.
That when she passed, I thought, well, yeah, it was. What more could you ask for? It was nothing to be sad about. I couldn't even go to grief. Well, I still don't quite understand it, but I think that's part of the rationale. We had everything that we ever wanted from the relationship, and there was nothing more to be required, nothing more to be said. So no regrets. So thanks, JC.
Yeah, no problem. And I'll add to that too, because I did cry when my mom, and I'm not comparing the way you deal with grief to me. Each of us deals with it in a different way. But what I can relate to is that the last 7-8 years of my mother's life, she and I became closer than we were. You know, we'd been through quite a bit. I mean, so we had I'm so grateful for that last bit of time with her, where both of us were trying to work on the relationship and coming to the table and talking about things. And, you know, nothing's perfect, but we were as open and authentic as we possibly could be. And I didn't know she was going to die. So I have no regret. I told her every day that I love her, and she understood how I felt about her. And so when she died, it wasn't what I always built up in my head that it would be. It was, and I went through some shock about that as well. I had a peace about it that I didn't expect, and you don't know how you're going to react until you're in the situation. So I can certainly understand where you're coming from, Glenn, and I appreciate your comment, because if you're good with the person when they die, and there wasn't any unresolved things, and there's no regret between you, then I think it's a different experience. I think when there's unresolved things between you and a loved one that dies, or even living. I mean, if there's regret and there's division and there's blocks and walls put up, and that stuff is unresolved. Of course, if something were to happen to that person, what do you do with all that stuff that's not been dealt with? I'm sure each person would have to figure out how to do that in the absence of the other person when they're not there for you to go to and work all that stuff out. There are definitely ways to do that, but it makes it more difficult for sure. All right, perfect. Well, guys, that's it for tonight. We've gotten through all the questions, and it's just after 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And another great episode in the can, so to speak. And definitely talked about some good topics tonight. And we'll have more again for you next week. And so I'll go to each one of you, and you can say goodnight to the chat room, and then I'll close everything out. Glenn, if you would go first and just say whatever you want to say in closing words, and we'll go from there.
Good night, all, and it's always a pleasure to be here, and my special thoughts with Anna tonight.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jen?
Oh, good night, you guys. So great to chat with you and talk about some great topics and questions, and really appreciated everyone's answers on the panel and everybody's not cooperation. That's the word I'm looking for. Everybody in the chat that contributed. I just really appreciate it. And Anna, we're praying for you, girl.
Mm-hmm.
Night, guys.
Thanks, Jen. Steve?
Yes, good night to all. May you find rest in Jesus Christ alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And for all the other issues, your number one thing is prayer.
Yeah.
Especially in hard relationships.
Yeah.
Pray.
Perfect.
Keep that communion with Christ.
Yeah.
But be blessed, y'all.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that. Matthias?
Well, I enjoyed tonight. I'd again apologize for being late. I was actually working and just got sucked into it with going over new software with Daniel, and I was like, "Oh, it's 8:30."
Oh, it's okay.
But so do apologize about that. But questions, great conversation, always fruitful and edifying.
Perfect.
Look forward to next week, guys. God bless everybody.
Thank you so much, Matthias. And I just want, before I close everything out, I just want to say that whatever you're dealing with in your life, there are people out there that would listen to you, and they would miss you if you were gone. And I want people to know that whatever situation you're dealing with, there are answers. It may be tough, it may be difficult, it may be heart-wrenching, but there are solutions to be found if you're able to just let someone know what's happening. And we saw an example of that tonight, where someone was willing to reach out on this channel in the chat room and let us know what was going on. And we did what we could in the situation. And I'm not asking for any blue ribbons or anything. I'm saying it because that just shows what our intentions are, and that we do care about the people that come in here, and they are part of a family, even though it's not blood relatives. We are part of a family here. And I would say that we would treat anyone that came in here and opened up to us and let us know that they needed any kind of assistance, even if it was just prayer or even if it was a kind word, and that we would respond to that with love and with grace and as quickly as possible. So whatever you're facing, there are solutions. There are people out there that care for you, even if in your own situation it may not seem that way. To just take the extra step and just reach out like it was done tonight. I definitely care for you guys. I met Steve in person just yesterday, and after all these conversations that we've had, and he's passed by through here several times, and it just didn't work out for whatever reason. And I finally put an end to that. And I just love meeting people in person that, you know, you hear their voice and you know their story, and you get to know them in this way. But to actually sit across from them and be able to see them, there's nothing like that. I hope I'm able to do more of that as time goes on. But find a couple people, if you can, that are close by, or at least someone that you can talk to openly and know that they're going to listen to you, and they're going to at least hear you out. And they have your best interest in heart. So that's a good thing. And a personal note to all the people in chat, you guys are awesome. Thanks for continuing to come back and listen to the show. If you're listening to the playback and you enjoyed anything that you heard or was edifying in any way, please like and subscribe, and also hit the bell if you want to have notifications of when our next show will be. Our generally scheduled program starts at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday nights. So we will be back here again in the same way next week at this time. And again, thank you for listening to True Story Live. And until next week, God bless and take care. Good night.